What is up? My day is going well. It's finally starting to warm up. By warm up, I mean it's like 41 degrees. There we go. So I want to start doing this. We are going to move all conversation for tonight into the WebPT. What the heck? Okay, I can't link to it, but if you are in this lecture, you are in that channel. So we're going to move all conversation into that channel regarding tonight's lecture. See you there. Oh, I'm here now. Cool. I'm not going to see anything in the other channel for the night, so make sure that you post all questions, comments, etc. into this 07 channel. I got a little poll for you. 007 channel. Multiple choice works. I'm not worried. While we wait, give one more minute for students to join. How much do you love higher order components? I figured it would be, Christopher. Like I was saying, it's important to understand the syntax. It's important to understand what's going on under the hood. When we use them, might not be the most important thing right at this second to fully understand how to implement our own or when that would be a good time. It's good to start thinking about that kind of stuff, but it's not going to come second nature to you when you're writing a React application. You're like, oh, this would be great for a higher order component here. You might think that and then keep building it the way you normally build it, but you'll see them a lot as you work as a professional, and you will start to see areas where you're like, that actually might be a viable solution for the problem we have right now. Implementing the login page easier? Absolutely. Implementing protected routes easier? Totally. It's going to take a lot of effort. I'll just say that I've been teaching at Lambda School for about 18 months now. I've professionally developed in React for years, and I still have to refresh every time I teach that lecture. So higher order components are not just this like totally easy thing that just comes straight to you. So keep that in mind. So tonight we're going to get a little bit harder. No, I'm just kidding. Tonight's going to be a nice like breath of fresh air. Step back for a moment and really work with some cool stuff. Yeah, ultimate order components, the highest order components. Yep, we're going to re-implement FunBus. FunBus and Great Idea. Actually, we're going to do Great Idea, and then we're going to do FunBus. So tonight's we're going to talk about CSS again. We're going to go back old school and talk about CSS. So we, React has some unique ways of implementing CSS. Who can tell me right now just some ways that React can implement CSS? How we can do that in React? There's a few ways. Import, and James, I'm assuming you're going to mean an import a CSS file, right? Yep, totally. Inline, so inline styling. So when we use inline, okay, I'll come back to that. Inline styles, which is the style prop, right? Import a CSS file. And if you've done your homework, you'll know a couple other ways we can do CSS. Library that you set style components. So we'll talk about styled components tonight, which is styled components are like my new favorite thing in CSS world. React Strap, and not just React Strap, but any other UI library that has a React implementation to it. So yeah, I'd say those are the four. And we can also use less in Sass, the same as we've always used it with Create React App. It works really well if we use less watch compiler as we develop and use class names on our JSX tags. So a quick question for those of you, especially those that you said inline styles. When we add a style prop to our JSX tags, where does that styling get added to? I want a location. Yeah, it's on the element on the DOM, right? That style gets added to the DOM. So what do we know about inline HTML styles? I don't want to say they're bad. Too powerful might be a word for it. Hard to maintain. Yep. Specificity. Yep. They're great. Sometimes they are very specific. Static. Yep. Then I don't think the speed really comes into it, but we know that inline styles on HTML elements are the most specific thing other than important, right? So they supersede every other style rule that we could possibly have. That makes them really hard to work with in the long run. So if we want to reuse styling, things like that, it's really hard to do that with inline styles. And for a long time, inline styles were the preferred way of styling in React. So we can talk about important all day long. What's the one time you should use important in my mind? I say there's one time, and not to override. Never to override. Go in and fix it. WordPress? Okay, 2 times. WordPress is one of those. When you're using Bootstrap, okay, I would say that you could do that because Bootstrap has its own style, but it also, we'll see with React Strap tonight, allows you to extend their styles as well. I would say the one of the few times you should use important is to protect a style. So if you want to make sure that nobody can accidentally mess up that style, you can use important. But you really shouldn't be using important other than maybe the funny few ways you've said here, especially WordPress. If you've ever worked with WordPress before, it's a treat. And if you don't have access to the original styles, yeah, that's a tricky situation. It's like, why don't you have access to it? Yeah, I mean, there are a few minor ways of doing it, but usually we don't want to use important. But inline styles, other than important, has the highest specificity. Okay. So I really like that, Justin. Um, so inline styles have the highest specificity, and so they're really hard for us to go in and write CSS for that will allow us to share things amongst our styling. So we're going to look at a couple of different ways tonight. Tonight's lecture is going to be not as long as the normal lectures are, and you're going to get to play with some CSS. You can take a deep breath of fresh air and start. Or unless you really dislike CSS, then it's like back to CSS land. But if you really dislike CSS, you should just play with it more and you'll start to get it. And so we're going to work with a couple of, and if you don't like CSS, you'll really like React Strap. Let me, once again, move my screens around. CSS hates us all. No, CSS is the most amazing thing. I used to really dislike CSS until I learned it properly, and then I was like, oh, it's pretty awesome stuff. Okay, and so who here has? Let's do a poll real quick. Poll. What? I didn't freeze. I'm writing a poll. Okay, what's your experience with Bootstrap? Give everyone a minute or two. Okay, looks like most of us have heard about it or have used it, at least for the training kit. And so Bootstrap is hands down the most popular UI library in the world. Okay. Bootstrap was developed by Twitter. So if you go and look at Bootstrap stuff, you're like, this looks a lot like Twitter. Well, there's a reason for it. It was developed by Twitter internally as their internal UI library, and then they released it as open source. And so it's kind of taken on a life of its own. Bootstrap even says here, the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript library in the world. Okay, sure. Yeah, I guess they're going to include HTML and JavaScript in there as well, because you have to use HTML in order to do it, and you have to use JavaScript for some of their stuff. Yeah, they're claiming that, so I'm not going to detract from that. It is the most popular UI library by far. Now that you are going to start working with Bootstrap a little bit, you are going to see Bootstrap everywhere. Like, they say like 75% of the world is built on the internet is built on WordPress. I would say a lot of that is Bootstrap as well. And so, you'll start to see like, oh, that looks like a Bootstrap button, or that looks like a Bootstrap, header up there, things like that. Okay. Yeah. Well, the classes and divs are a little bit. So let's go look at our documentation. Let's go look at examples are better. Nope. Custom components. No, I want to see, where's our documentation? Let's come in here. Yeah, components. There we go. That's what we want to do. So, you're going to look through here and be like, oh, this is like really familiar looking to me, because you've seen it everywhere. And so you'll come through here and you'll see that Bootstrap has a ton of good looking pre-built out components for us to use. So alerts is one of them. Let's go navbar. We'll see their navbar is pretty simple here, but we got some cool stuff. All right. Modals in Bootstrap are really amazing. Modals are a notoriously difficult thing to build. And Bootstrap just allows us to throw a couple of divs and some classes on them and builds a modal for us. So how Bootstrap works is that you download historically through what we call a CDN onto your page the Bootstrap CSS files. Okay, and so all of the Bootstrap CSS files would automatically be on your page, and then you would go through and give components or your elements specific classes, and those classes would correspond to something in the Bootstrap file and would create these buttons. Buttons are like the biggest one from Bootstrap, right? You have all these buttons. Let's see, pagination is a really great one in Bootstrap. Gets us this pagination like automatically for us just by, and honestly, so much Bootstrap is just like, whoop, copy that, come in here, put what you wanted on for the content, and there you go. You got some Bootstrap component. Pretty simple stuff. You can come through into Bootstrap, and we'll be coming back through here quite a bit. I had an issue with spinners last time in React Strap. So what it is, well, that's the. I don't know about the site you posted, but Sean. So it makes it really easy for those of us, and I will include myself in this group, that don't have strong design backgrounds, that don't have like a good eye for design, and it allows us to jump in and build something very quick. Okay, very, very quick. And it built something quick that looks good, right? I can come in here and try to develop this spinner, and it'll take me an hour to do it, and it'll look all right. Or I can come in here and just go, whoop, I got that Bootstrap spinner. Okay, or a button, right? Think about what goes into building this button. You know, you got a hover on it, you got some border radius, you got a color that looks good, you got a font color that looks good, right? A lot of stuff, right? And you can just grab this stuff and plug and play with it. That's what the beauty of Bootstrap is. Bootstrap is not the only UI library. Material UI is very popular, using the Material. What? It just popped up. Come on. Let's go there. Using Google's Material kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Wait, why is it in Portuguese? No, close. I don't care. All this stuff. And so, yeah, so we can, do something else, right? So Bootstrap is the most popular, but Material UI, Materialized, there's Semantic UI, there's all kinds of different stuff. It really depends on the look you're going for. This is kind of the Google style modern Material UI look, whereas Bootstrap is the Twitter look, et cetera, et cetera. An alert is probably one of their components. So, and this isn't Google. Google did not build Material UI. This is a third party that built it using Google's Material UI material design. That's what I was looking for. Their material design layout. Okay, so this is Bootstrap. Bootstrap traditionally, like I said, we download some CSS files and add some classes to it. Works totally fine. Someone came through and said, yeah, this works, but this isn't really the React style of doing things. So they wrote React Strap. So React Strap is actually going to take all of the Bootstrap components and all of the rules in Bootstrap, believe all of the rules in Bootstrap, and create React components out of these things. So instead of creating a div with the, or a button with the type button with the class of btn and btn primary, we're going to come in here and we're going to import a button component from React, and we are going to be able to render that to the page pretty simply. Okay, and this is going to, under the hood, this is using Bootstrap. We are going to install Bootstrap as we always have, but we're not going to have to mess with giving different things different class names. Let's go play with it. So let's go over to React and let's go getting started with React getting started with create React app. So this is saying, like, if you have create React app, this is how you do it. Okay, and we are going to be using create React app, so this is how we're going to do it. First things first, we need to install create React app. Boom, boom, boom. We don't have to worry about that. Next, we're going to install Bootstrap. So let's come into here, add a dependency, and we'll go Bootstrap. Why didn't that load? Bootstrap. Ah, there it goes. Okay. So Bootstrap is installed. So if I were on VS Code rather than Code Sandbox, what would I need to do here? Before, we would just yarn at it, right? We really don't use that many CDNs any longer on front-end development. You can, but with React, we kind of bundle everything, and then there's a bunch of stuff going on under the hood, tree shaking and whatsoever, that works a lot better for us than the CDN. So you download everything at once rather than going and downloading everything piecemeal. Okay, so the next, it says we need to add React. React, notice, does not have a hyphen in it. So make sure that you do not add a hyphen in it. There's probably a React strap. See, there's a React strap, but we want React strap with no hyphen. Notice the difference between these two. React strap with a hyphen has 1.3 thousand, so 1,300 downloads. React strap without has 5.8 million. The majority of this 1,300, I guarantee, is because they were trying to download this one. All right. There's a package like this that's misspelled for every single popular package out there. That's it. Okay. So we will add that. We got React strap. Now, next thing we're going to do is we are going to need to import the Bootstrap CSS file. Okay. I don't think we have our node modules open on this on Code Sandbox, but we can go in if you wanted to. Never mind. No, node modules is not available to us. We can go look at it later. You can go in and find this CSS file, and you can read the CSS file all you want. It's minified, so I would find the non-minified version, but you can come in here and read the CSS file and see exactly how Bootstrap is doing it. I believe that 5.8 million is downloads, not necessarily projects or people. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to come in here and we are going to import this CSS file. Just like we import any other CSS file, we need to import that Bootstrap CSS file. All right. Let's see. Actually, that looks kind of crazy. So Bootstrap right off the bat is giving us some styles. All right. You can see that our H1 and our H2s were styled there just by adding that Bootstrap stuff. Now that we have Bootstrap in our project, the actual CSS files, our React Strap components will work. So let's come in here and import button, just like it says to do. So we'll come in. I'm going to go import button. So remember, this is going to be destructured. I'm going to grab the button. What is this? What is button here when we get it? Button is a component. And we use the button component just like we would use any other component. All right. We'll call it. And then we'll just say something like, click me. And look at that. Now we have a button component. We have a hover on it. We have some styling to it. We've got a little, what is that? There's a little line next to it. I'm not sure what that is, why that's there. But yeah, we've got a button component on the screen here. Now, we can click it. If this is, I'll ask this. What do you envision this element is? What type of element? What HTML element? It's a button, right? And so if we come and look through React Strap here, we can see, and let's go, there's a way to do a CDN. Let's go to our documentation. Let's go components. Let's go buttons. And we'll see they've given us a list of properties. This is really good documentation. So these are all the properties that the button component will take. So you can come in here and say, like, it'll take active, it'll take block, color, disabled, outline, tag, inner ref, on click, size, children, class name, CSS module. Remember that when if we added an on click method to this, this is not necessarily getting added to the button element by default. This is a prop that's getting passed to the button component. Under the hood, it looks like React Strap is adding the on click to it for us, so we can use an on click on here, right? So it's important to understand: could you use an on? Let's see, what's a good synthetic React event? Could you use a key down event on the button? On change, sure. On change or key down. You cannot. Okay, you can't unless you go in and manipulate the source code for this button, right? We can use those on a real button, but we can only use the on-click event on this component. So it's important to understand your limitations when using a library like this, that they have to pass that down for us. And if they don't provide that prop, then we don't get to use it, okay? Seems worse than just vanilla Bootstrap, to be honest. It depends on your idea of worse. Is it as extensible, and is it as can we do anything we want? No, yeah, it's not. It is worse than that effect, but it is a lot cleaner and it is a lot easier. So let's go. It says color secondary. Not sure. That's just the way they did it. Let's go look at a Bootstrap documentation. It should tell us what button. It does not tell us what their default is. It looks like Bootstrap's default button is primary. So let's go play with that. Now we can see these are all of the buttons, the props that we can give this button. And let's see. I'm not sure what the tag even does. function string. Pass on a component to override default button element. Okay, so you can give it another component that will take the so it looks like here the default element is button, right? It's going to create a HTML or a JSX button out of it. We can pass something in like a React Router link. We'll talk about React Router next week. That makes it so that it's not button. Anyways, we're not going to worry about that. Let's go look at color. So we can see in here, and it'll tell us in here that our colors are right there. Those are the colors. We can also look at the Bootstrap documentation specifically, because this is where it's getting that info from. So we come in here, and I'm going to take that on click off, and I can just say color. And what type is this prop expecting? Coming in, looking at here. So expecting a string, right? We can see, man, this is some great documentation, because we can see the prop type's color is going to expect a string, and it's going to expect a string of the Bootstrap color: primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, light, and dark, and link. Those are the colors that it's expecting. Can I pass it a color that's Dodger blue? No, I cannot. Okay. I have to use a Bootstrap color. You can manipulate Bootstrap and change all of the colors and what these primary, secondary, warning, etc. mean. Okay, so you're starting to see some limitations in this, right? Let's go through some other stuff real quick, too. Let's go and play with the size. So let's find size. We see size is going to expect a string, all right? It doesn't really tell us much about size on here. We can do an outline button as well. Oh, yeah, we'll play with that. There we go, sizes. Large, small, block, cool. So we got a lot of stuff we can play around with in here. So let's do size is small. So made the button a lot smaller, right? Size biggest, most big. Size LG is large, all right? And then we can see that our size on here default, it doesn't have a default. Button secondary doesn't have a default size, so it just must be the regular default size. Is there a triple extra large? I'm not sure. Let's go see sizes. Large, small. That's it. You only got a large and a small. Okay. Okay, so that's larger than the standard, and that's smaller than the standard. So we can come in here and look and see that's larger than the standard. That's the standard. Oop. All right. Size. Well, and that's smaller than the standard size. All right. So you can see what are some major limitations that you're seeing with Bootstrap right now? We're limited, absolutely, on color, on sizes. Bootstrap isn't proprietary, it's open source. Not super customizable, right? Stuck with what you get. We can play around with this stuff to an extent. So I'm going to do something. Block is true. So look, now I have a 100% width button here. That's a block. We can play around with this. But yeah, it is restricted, right? We can't go in and manipulate every tiny little thing. If we could go in and manipulate every tiny little thing, what's that called? Yeah, exactly. Writing our own CSS. Okay, knowing what we're doing when we design things. We can do that, but that just means we have to go write our own CSS. All right. What are some pros about Bootstrap that you see? Fast, quick, fast, fast, fast. Inclusive. Absolutely. Copies Twitter. I mean, yeah, if you go to Twitter. I don't think I follow anyone weird or offensive. Um, and this is all Bootstrap stuff, right? This is Bootstrap to the max. All of this is because Twitter developed it. All right. Um, so reusability, totally. Bootstrap has. I'm not on Twitter very much. I read more than I do anything. Bootstrap has a defined place. For me, it's prototyping. Okay. Bootstrap is really amazing for prototyping. When I want to worry about the nitty gritty of developing my application and I don't want to put any thought into the design of it, then I jump to a UI library. I go Bootstrap, Materialize. I can get something that works. I can get a proof of concept out there. And then from that point on, it's like, okay, it works. We're going to go with this thing. We'll get the designers on it because obviously I'm not designing it. And we will go with it, right? I use it for prototyping. Is it going to slow down your page having all that CSS download? Yeah, probably a little bit. I don't think the CSS is that big of a deal. I think that in the era of single page applications and downloading entire React apps, a little bit more CSS isn't that big of a deal. So, I mean, for me, when I'm developing, if I have designs, I can develop very fast. If I have to design my own stuff, my development slows down 10 times. So this allows me as a developer to go through and build something that looks really good and works well. Okay. You could add your own CSS file and add important wherever you wanted to change. So what's one other downside of Bootstrap? Robert, I don't think I can talk about Bootstrap and animations, to be quite honest. I don't usually dig that deep into Bootstrap. Too homogenized? Yeah, I think that you're kind of going the direction I was thinking, Rain. Bootstrap, yeah, I guess we could say that for everything though, right? Because we downloaded Bootstrap from NPN. People overuse it, you're gonna look like everyone else, right? Where you get the homogenized action from. You're gonna look like it's gonna look generic. Okay? Because any developer with an eye for Bootstrap is gonna see your page and go like, oh, they're using Bootstrap. Like it's very, very, very obvious what Bootstrap looks like. I mean, you're probably all very familiar with exactly how this button looks like because you have clicked that button hundreds of thousands of times probably. Okay? So that's one thing with Bootstrap. A couple other things I want to talk about that are not Bootstrap specific, but are cool to point out while we're using Bootstrap or React Strap, are how we play with props. So you'll see we come into here, and you'll see something like this. You'll see a prop just placed in there, but it doesn't equal anything. It doesn't do anything. Let's go take that. And you'll see that I can put a prop in here that does not equal to anything, and it'll work. All right. So does anyone have any idea of what's going on here? Almost, Rain. Oh, I can do this. all on its own, and it'll still work. I love this. So what's happening here, and this is, like I said, not just for Bootstrap or React Strap. Remember that this is just a React component, okay, that is being created by another library. What's happening here is if you include a library or if you include a prop and you don't set it to anything, React will automatically read that prop as this. Okay. React will automatically set whatever that prop is to true, to the Boolean true. All right. And this is a vanilla React thing. Okay. It will automatically set that prop to the Boolean of true. So, that being said, if we ever have a time where we are going to set a prop to true and it's not going to change, if you're ever going to write this out, all you need to do is write the name of the prop, and that's the best practice of doing that. What if you are going to do something like, we'll just go is outline through, and then that is outline could change to false at some point. Would you write it like this? No, you wouldn't. You would include the actual thing. But if you're ever going to write it like this, no need to waste your time writing that out unless it makes you understand what you're doing better. You can just write outline. So we can also do something like disabled. And now it will disable that button for us. Remember that this is true. Same exact thing. Okay. You come through here and you'll see that there's a lot of, anytime you'll have a prop that's a Boolean, so block, color, or no, soup, block, disabled, outline. Looks like those are all the Booleans. Close. We can come through here and let's see what close does. I don't even know what that does. Close something, I guess. Block, right? Yeah. It's not a mixin. This is a React thing, okay? React automatically does this for us. So we can just put the name of a prop and it automatically sets that prop value to true. All right. Any questions on React Strap? You can come through here. It's really cool. Honestly, like you of course it has its limitations, but it's really fun to play with to get good looking stuff quick. You know, come and do a form really quick. It sets it up and makes it look really good right off the bat. Any questions with Bootstrap or React Strap? I see some typing, so I'll give it a moment. Jordan, there is no catch. It is this easy. It's very easy. I would say the catch to this is if you develop an entire application with Bootstrap, it's going to be difficult to go back through and really style it on your own. That would be the catch. Lack of originality, that would be a catch as well. Multiple styling libraries. I don't want to say it would be bad, but I wouldn't do that. I would stick with one. This does not let us use Dodger Blue. That's a bad thing for sure. Let's see. We can reference any of the properties in the documentation to fine tune. Yep. So if you come into here, you'll see all of the props, the prop types. And now that we know what prop types are, know how to read prop types, we can see exactly what they expect and exactly what type they expect. Nicholas, this is, like I said, there are so many websites on the internet that use Bootstrap as their styling. If that's the way you go, that's the way you go. That's totally fine to do. I like to have a bit of a more customized look. And if you go to Bootstrap, you can see that people build Bootstrap themes, okay, that don't look anything like normal Bootstrap. That's all using Bootstrap. And so you can go through and if you really want to, you can customize Bootstrap, okay? And it allows you to do that. That's if you want to, okay? So it's really a good library to get the hang of and to throw up some really cool, good-looking stuff. Oh, yeah, you can build your own themes and then charge for them. It's like WordPress and anything. How much do you think this theme has made? It's $50. It looks good. I bet they've sold a ton of them, right? That's some passive income a lot of designers and developers can do. Just develop a theme for $50 and sell it. Bootstrap absolutely had a greater impact before Flexbox or Grid because they had the first grid system. Really made it amazing. Yep. All right, everyone. We're going to take a break. I'll just use this. We're not going to go back to React. 5-minute timer. And I'll see you in Come on back and let's keep on going. All right. One thing that I forgot to mention about Bootstrap that's really amazing is that Bootstrap is fully responsive. So pretty awesome stuff right out the gate. It automatically has media queries already installed into it, and it works really well with responsive design. So it's fully responsive right out the package. So you don't have to worry about that either. So that's pretty cool stuff. So Bootstrap is a library. Okay, it is a UI library that has all of its own UI components and allows you to use them in the Bootstrap manner. Get bootstrap.com and then you can type in or Google React Strap documentation and you'll get that. Next thing we're going to talk about is boop, boop. No. Yep, I do want to navigate away. Of course. Okay. So for the longest time, it was that we did inline styles in React. So we would come in here and we would say const style equals, and we'd create an object, and then we could do something like color, Roger blue, and then we would put a style prop on an element. And we would see that it works. Okay. Totally fine. But we had already mentioned that this is going to put that style onto our DOM element, right? And so what we, there's a lot of different things. You'll see there's CSS in JS. There's a bunch of different solutions to styling React. Okay, we could add a class name and put it in, and this is all our own styles now, right? Bootstrap does its own thing, and we're going to style our own thing. Come into play the amazing mind of, I think he was like 19 years old when he wrote this whole thing. Max Stobier is styled components. So styled components allows us to create our own React components with their own styling to it. All right. It takes a little bit of getting used to writing style components, but once you get used to writing style components, honestly, this is like my favorite thing since preprocessors as far as the world of CSS goes. So style components allows us to create, there is no going back. There really isn't, I swear. It's like kind of crazy. Once you start using style components, it's all you want to use, right? So let's think of something that we can't do in something like this. What could we not do here? Any negative downsides to just doing the basic inline style here in React? Reusability, I mean, I could reuse this, right? I could come in and put that on another one. So reusability, I could do both, right? Messy looking code for sure. Although style components isn't any cleaner sometimes. So things like if I wanted to change the color here based on the prop, right? So if I just had a prop come in that was, green, and I wanted to have this be the prop color, I would have to have this inside. And if this was a class component, I would have to have that inside of render to be able to understand what the prop is. Okay, so that's getting created every single time. I would say the biggest thing about inline styles to me is that we cannot use media queries on inline styles. Okay, so no media queries on inline styles. So it's really difficult to try to figure out a way to create responsive React applications with inline styles here. Another thing that I hate about inline styles is that if I go to say something like background color, which is a CSS property, and I give it green, I get an error because JavaScript does not play with hyphens. Okay, JavaScript is reading this as the variable background color or background minus the variable color, and it just doesn't work. Okay, so now I have to think about going through and getting rid of the hyphen and camel casing it. All right, and then every single time, every single CSS property I want to use that has a hyphen, font size. All right, I have to go in and do that. Let's be crazy. Oh yeah, then I have to make sure that I wrap it all in strings. Okay, and then I have to make sure that I don't miss my commas. And there we go. All right. With style components, we write real CSS. Okay. So style components, we write actual real CSS. How do you mean autofill, Greg? Yeah, that's a beautiful site right there, huh? I'll get rid of that for you. So we write actual CSS. Now, the funky thing about style components is how we use it. But we'll come through here and we'll read about it. Getting started. Installation. Pretty simple. Whenever you see npm install save, we think yarn add. Okay? So let's go do it. Let's go add styled components to this. Only 3 million. React Strap is totally beating it. But I guarantee that style components will take that over very shortly. Okay. Boom. So let's go to getting started. All right. Let's go to do this. It's recommended to use style components Babel. We don't have to worry about that because we are using Create React Apps, so we don't have to worry about the Babel plugin yet. First, styled component. Well, let's say you want to create a simple and reusable button component you can use throughout your application. There should be a normal version. So we can come in here and create kind of a bootstrappy style of doing things, right? Okay. And in fact, I believe, no, Bootstrap is using, I believe they're using Sass. I think React Strap might be using style components now to create their stuff. Cool. Let's go through and follow this through. So we're going to see here that we're going to import styled from styled components. So let's go import styled from styled components. Can I call this? Can I call this anything I want? I can. I definitely can because I'm not destructuring it. So I can call this Dan's styled comps if I wanted to. But styled is convention, and that's what we want to make sure that we do. All right, so that when someone sees styled on the page, that they know exactly what it is. All right, we're going to create a button. We are styled components is going to create a component. Yes. Oh, that's awesome, Christopher. MySpace got deleted, so you can't use that anymore. So we're going to create an actual component. So I'm going to use an uppercase letter to start the component name off with, because this is a component. All right. We're going to call styled. Styled is the name of the library. So this is the whole library in here. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to call a key on styled. So styled is going to be an object, and it has a method. And this method can literally be any HTML element out there. All right. Any HTML element I can do. If I wanted to do video, I could do video. If I wanted to do section, I could do section. Okay. I'm going to do button right now. All right. Class isn't an HTML element. So you got to think of HTML elements. Okay. So H1 you can do, right? If I want to do H1, I can do that. I'm going to do button. All right. So the funky thing about styled components is that we do not call this function. This is a function. Styled.button is a function. We do not call it with parentheses. All right. Max learn this new ES6 way of calling functions. It's really cool. He has a great blog post about why he used it. If you have the chance, find it. Follow him on Twitter. He's a great Twitter follower. He's really doing innovative stuff, and he's like 21 years old. But we're calling a function using backticks. It's really strange, but trust me on it. So we call this function using backticks. So these backticks are essentially string interpolation, right? Max Stobier. Max Stobier. I don't know how to pronounce his name. That's him. MXSTBR. And he's got a great blog, and he talks about why he used backticks here. And it's really awesome to go in and learn why, like a prodigy. So now we have backticks, and inside of these backticks, we can just write our own CSS in here. All right. So it's going to call that button. It's going to create a button component. It's going to create a JSX component, and it's going to add this CSS to that component. So let's come in here, and let's see how we're going to do it. So button variable, now a React component. You can use like any other React component. The unusual, nope, that's not it. It's called the tag template literal. There's the MDN. There it is. That's what you want to read right there. Good. I think that's the blog post, right? Kind of. Okay. Well, you'll all find it, and I'll share it with you. So it's called a tag template literal. It's weird. All right. But let's go and copy this button code. We're going to copy Max's button code in here. And if we look, this is regular old CSS like we're used to writing. We've got hyphens in here. We don't need to wrap our values in a string. We can write regular CSS in here. So we'll come down in here. And now we have a button that is, there it is. There's a button on here that has that styling that we just gave it there. Okay. And so all we did was write CSS, and it gave us back this button component. Let's come back in here. All right. As you can see, style components lets you write actual CSS in your JavaScript. That's a big part of it. Means you can use all the features of CSS you love, including media queries, pseudo selectors. We could never use pseudo selectors in inline styles in React. Nesting. Oh, nesting is so cool. Things like that. So let's come in here. We can use nesting. Nesting is amazing. Let's come in here and we can use a pseudo selector. We can use a hover. Let's do hover. So in order to do this, and this is essentially in the same style as less. Okay. So we can say and pseudo selector hover. We are nesting now this hover inside of the button. Let's come in here and say background is now pale violet red. And then color is going to be white. All right. Now, our hover works. Okay. This is amazing stuff. Not there. There. I'm not going to call it less, Claire, but it's the same nesting style that less and Sass and Stylus and all the other preprocessors use. Okay, so we can do that, using the and then the stuff. Aaron, glad you asked. Let's come through here, and we'll see styled button, blah blah blah. And now we can see that we can actually pass our component props. Okay, so we need to come in here and grab the CSS method from it. We'll say styled CSS, and now let's do this. So what we do, just like in any string template literal, if we want to write JavaScript, we need to use brackets. Just like in JSX, right? We want to write JavaScript, we need to use brackets. And this bracket inside of here is going to take a callback. This is where the string template literal thing really comes in handy. Okay? So now it can take a props. It will bring in props. This part is going to be the part that's going to take a lot of getting used to. Okay? So, oops, and I didn't do it right. Right? Yeah, I messed my $. Excuse me. And so I have props, and then we're going to return something now. So we can say, let's come right. I want to see exactly how they wrote it. Okay, so they wrote it as a conditional. So I'm going to say props.primary. And I'm going to write this as a conditional. You saw this last week, how I wrote this as a conditional. And then we're going to say, call that CSS function with another backtick. All right. So we'll say CSS. And then we're just going to do this. Copy that over. Cool. All right. So let's look through this now, and we'll see exactly what's going on. Does our button currently have a prop? Any props on it? Does not. If it does not have a props, and especially if it doesn't have a prop that is primary, it is going to not render that. It's going to render nothing, and it's going to render this whole button here for us. Okay. If it does have a prop that's primary, it's going to render this for us. So let's check it out. How do I write a prop that says primary equals the Boolean true? Remember our bootstrap conversation. We can write primary equals true, or we can just write primary. Okay, and remember, this is primary equals the Boolean true. Now look, now it just took that and it made that. So let's actually let's do this just to make sure. Dodger blue, let's do it. Primary's there, right? Primary's not there. So now we can render different styles based on different props that we have. Okay. So yeah, now you can call a prop whatever you want. Absolutely. Just like in any prop, you can call it whatever you want. Style components is going to create a component for you. That's it. And it's going to also pass all of your regular props down to the components. Aaron, yes, it is. So yeah, this would be also on there. So if I had this at the very top, would primary work? Ooh, I have a yes and a no. Let's check it out. It doesn't, right? Think back to your CSS rules. This stuff's going to get rendered, and then this is going to get rendered. That's going to overwrite that because of cascading, right? So this is going to cascade. This is going to be the one that takes precedence. Color is going to be pale violet red because it takes precedence. So if you want to do something like that, you're going to need to make sure those rules are below. CSS is a styled components function. We grabbed it from styled components, okay? Yep, no worries. All right. We're just getting started with styled components. That's not what I was looking for. So now we can render two different buttons to the screen. All right. Let's come down to the bottom. Let's go to documentation, basics, and we are going to go to extending styles. Where's our extending styles at? So check this out. This is where style components gets really powerful. I mean, it's very powerful as is, but this is where it starts to get really powerful. Quite frequently, you might want to use a component, but change it slightly for a single case. I don't know if you can, Jason. You'd have to look into that. Now, you could pass it into an interpolated function and change them based on some props. But if you want to use it for a single case, it doesn't really make sense, right? Quite a lot of effort for overriding the styles one time. So we can make a new component that inherits the styling of the other. Let's go make a tomato button. So how we inherit is we write styled, and then we put the other component that we want to inherit from in there. Okay. Follow along. And then we use our backticks to call that again to extend the styles of it. So we only want to use all the same styles in here, but we want to change the colors a little bit around. One-time use. So we can say border is 2 pixels solid tomato. We want to say color is tomato. And that's it. All right. And I'm gonna get rid of this just for the sake of it for right now. And now I can come in here Let's go get rid of that primary. And now I have merely extended the styling of button to have a little bit of different color to be our tomato button. Okay. So look, and we'd probably want our hover to be boop, 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 boop. And then we go background. Remember, you need your semicolons are necessary in CSS. Is tomato. Pale violet red, tomato. This is inheriting all of the styles of this, and it's just overriding a few. Okay. So, James, I imagine we would want to put all of these styles in another file. That is an architectural decision that's going to be up to you and your team that you're on, whatever you're building. I personally like building components in a file and having an index.js, which is the actual component that I'm building, and having a styles.js, which is all of my styled components that I import into my index.js. That's what I like doing. It's up to you what you're doing. You can do them in line here very easily, especially if you're using a button. You might want to have like a whole UI library that you built of buttons and forms and borders and things like that you can just import from, and if you want to extend it a little bit, just throw that into a file. Right there, the sky is the limit with this stuff. And so we can use nested styling, right? We have these hovers. I haven't showed you. Let's do a media query now. But yeah, there's just, you can do anything, not anything, but this just really opens up the world of CSS and preprocessors essentially right in our React files. It's not technically a preprocessor, so I want to make that clear, but it's the same kind of stuff that we would do with a preprocessor. Okay, cool. Yeah, Greg, I don't get how tomato text changed to white on the tomato hover, right? So tomato button is extending all of the styles of button. So whatever we're not overriding in here, we're going to get from button. So since the hover has the color of white already on it, we don't need, and we want that still, we don't need to override that. All right. So that's only overriding the things we want to override. We want to either give it more styling or we want to override something. Make sense? Cool. Just like in when you do any kind of media query type of stuff, right? Speaking of media queries, let's go play with media queries. This is some bonus stuff because we've gone through this very fast, and I love this. Media templates. So media queries are an indispensable tool when developing responsive web apps. Very simple example. So there are a lot of different ways to do this, right? This is a very advanced way of doing it. But this is really cool. This really extends our media queries and allows us to write the sizes of our queries one time and use those over and over again. But let's just go do a regular old media query, okay? So let's do @media, just like we would write in CSS. And we would say max width. And I don't even know what the size of this window is. Let's do 700. And then let's just do something like padding is 1M and 4M. I don't like how he uses M's, but that's not my problem. Okay, so media query totally works, right? From 0 to 700, this padding is taking place. From 700 on, that padding disappears. Okay, we can add our media query right to our style component here. All right, there's some great examples of how to create a bootstrap-esque button in what the heck, in Training Kit. Still. Oh, trying to copy paste over. Look at this. Creating a bootstrap-esque button in with style components. So you can say a type of your prop, whatever you want it to. Primary, success, danger, warning, right? This could be color, not type. Which homepage? Oh, that's momentum. Right? So you can do so much with style components. Flex direction column, absolutely, you can do that. Although it's not wrapped right now in anything, so I couldn't really show that. These aren't wrapped. And this is bugging me, so I'm going to add much better. And then maybe we want to go font size 2M. Oh, that's way too big. 1. All right. That's style components. Like I said, tonight's lecture is a little bit shorter than the rest. But do you have any questions right now on what we've gone over tonight? Ooh. So, one other thing. Let's say we had a div. Let's say this was an A in here, like, right? Okay. We can style that using our nested styles as well. So if I say A, and I can go text, declaration, none. Now you'll see that our text decoration was disappeared, right? Nested styles. Boom. So cool. So cool. Yeah, I can share this. I don't know why it says proofed up there. Although this is essentially just copied from the style components. What do you mean by logic, Rain? Beyond styling, you are going to create a normal component for that and just use style components where you would put a div or a button or an H1, etc. That's what you use style components for. It is purely presentational. So if I did style.input, it takes on change, value, placeholder. It takes all of those props just like an input element would. And you would create your form in your actual component, right? Here. And then just use style components as your styling. That's it. And unlike Bootstrap, it takes all of the regular native stuff. You just got to write your own styling. I see some more typing, so I'm going to give it a moment. And yeah, you totally saw that. This is a higher order component, right? Styled is. We passed it a component, it extended some styles, and it's going to return another component for us. Key down if you want to do key down. If it's an element that takes key down like an input, then absolutely. Everything that you could normally pass to an H or a JSX element in React, you can pass to a style component. There's no difference. I don't know what BOMA components is, but I would assume that yes, if you want to add style components, you can. I don't know what the BOMA framework is. There's a lot of stuff out there. Okay. How would you style a div with class name? So if you were to do a class name like this, where would you have to put this styling at? You put that in a CSS file, right? So we see that our CSS file has that in it already. So that's the kind of the standard way of doing things. Style components is the newer way of doing things. Standard CSS absolutely still works, although I would use a preprocessor if you're going to use CSS. Justin, I would never go that far. I would say that it is almost, in the professional world, almost zero, you're writing vanilla CSS. Okay. So you're either going to be writing styled components or you're going to be using a preprocessor like Less or Sass. CSS is catching up with nesting and modules and things like that, but right now it's either styled components or a preprocessor. So what I would do, and this is really, really, really a matter of personal taste. Okay, this is when I'm creating a private personal project. I'm going to say component name, and then inside of here, I'm going to create index.js. That's where my component's going to live. Okay, and inside of there, I'm going to create styles.js. And that's where my styled components are going to live. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write all of my React stuff, right? Export, default, class, component name, etc. And then I'm going to import components from styles. Use into here. Okay, that's what I would do. That is not necessarily the right thing to do. So I'm just saying that that's what I like doing. You're going to see a lot of different patterns of this kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. So you can come in here and then import styled from styled components and then export a bunch of button type of thing, right? And then come in here and import button from styles. You could do that, right? You could have a components folder and you could have a styled components folder, right? Where your styled components have a matching component name file in it with just the styled components for that file. Okay. There's 100 different ways to structure your application. And that is really up to personal tastes, architectural decisions by a team, and especially a senior team member. There's no set in stone way of doing this kind of thing. Okay. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of seeing different styles and where, how things are set up in different projects. Cool. I don't want anyone here to think that I'm saying that this is the way to do things, because this is a way of doing things. Okay. Delete it. I don't want it. Cool. Any other questions right now? See a lot of typing going on, so I'll just patiently wait. Yep. Thanks, Carlos. Perfect. Like it is a question that is probably a never ending question, is how to structure your application, structure your filing system. It really, it needs to make sense to you and your team, and that's all that matters, right? If you're creating a button for your entire project, I would have some file in the top of your project that has that style component in it. That's what I would do if it's to use on your entire project. Greg, you have to watch out for nesting, and you have to watch out for specificity. That's the only things that are tricky about it. So don't go nesting a lot of things in style components. It's an easy route to go down, but it makes things very specific. Lots and lots and lots of practice. And I don't think I'm a high level mage. I think I'm a mid level mage. I didn't write styled components, so all right, everyone. You are apprentices. Cool. I'm going to call it on that one. Thankfully, this is you're not like mind blown in a negative way like higher order components, but this is really cool stuff. A nice little step back from the really intense theoretical HOC design structure stuff into some fun stuff that we can see on the screen, and it looks cool. This can be tricky, so take your time going through style components, working with, especially with your props and your callback functions in here. That can be a tricky part to it, but it's a lot of fun. So have fun with this stuff. Have a great night, and I will see you later.